Welcome to Crochet 101. For more information about this series and all other videos in this series, you can check out the Crochet 101 playlist on my profile. Today we are going to be covering a very basic hat pattern. So this will be using up a lot of our past skills, so if you're unfamiliar with any of the things I'm doing, you can check out the videos that cover them in that Crochet 101 playlist. And also, as I said, this is a very, very basic pattern. So if you guys want some more I thought of some more hat patterns while I was making this. So if you guys want to see some more hat patterns, let me know and I'd be happy to do more tutorials like that. But let's get started. So this is the finished product. This is what you're going to end up with. And this is using that same yarn that I told you guys to buy and our 5mm hook. So let's grab those tools. So the size of hat that I'm making today, this is actually a child size. I needed to make hats for my daughters anyways, so I used this as an opportunity to do that. And so I'm going to put a little table up here that has kind of like the average sized hats that you should make for like toddler, child, and adult. Obviously, this will be very dependent on the head size of the person you're making them for. And another note, you want this part to fit quite snugly around the recipient's head because it is a rib stitch. So you want to be able to fit it quite tightly so when it fits around, it stays on, if that makes sense. So I am going to start by chaining 51. And what I'm chaining right now is how tall I want my hat to be. So this is not, we're going to be working this way, not this way. So how much I chain is how tall I want this hat to be. And for the child size, I'm going to be chaining 51. And in case you're curious, I used about 200 yards of yarn to make the child-sized hat. So you'll need at least that for this project. So there I have my 51 chains. So we're going to be working like 50 active stitches. And for this first row, you're just going to single crochet every single chain just to kind of establish an actual crochet row. So we are just going to work every single stitch with a single crochet. So now I've worked my first row of single crochet and we are going to start working our ribbing into the situation. As you can see, we have about 1.5 inches of ribbing down at the bottom, not only to like hold the hat a little bit better on the head, but also it just gives a more of a finished look to it. So ribbing is something I discussed during my crocheting on the back loop lesson, and all you're going to do to make crocheted ribbing is just crochet on the back loop for as much as you want the ribbing to be. So in this case, I'm going to do 10 stitches worth of ribbing. So for the next 10 stitches, we are going to single crochet on the back loop. And now what I'm going to recommend that you do is mark this spot. So we have 10 single crochet on the back loop, and this is going to be a regular single crochet. You can either use a stitch marker or, as I taught you in a past lesson, using a piece of old scrap yarn, you can just lay it in here and crochet over it. And now you'll know every time that you get to this spot that your stitches are going to change either back into single crochet or into crocheting on the back loop, because every time you go into this area here, you are going to single crochet on the back loop, and that is what is going to create this ribbed texture, this like stretchy ribbed texture here. So I'm going to finish up this row with single crochet so it's now 39 stitches that are left after we did the first one. So I finished that row out, and now I'm going to turn my piece around. I already did my single chain at the end to clean up my row, and I am going to turn this around and single crochet the next 40 stitches, and then when I get to my little piece of string here, I'll know to transfer over to the single crocheting on the back loop, and I'm going to continue to work up in that way until I have a flat piece that is the circumference of the head that I want to make. So that is what I have here, and here you can see my little marker that I carried all the way up, and it kind of dances back and forth when you're working with a flat piece like this because you're not really working in the round, and I'm not really doing any like changes or anything like that. But here you can see, just by working on the back loop, just in this section right here, we have our nice stretchy ribbing, and this will be the circumference of the head that I'm trying to make this for. This is another child size hat. So we are going to now close this up and sew the top closed, and I'll show you how. I know a lot of people do not enjoy sewing, so we're going to try and keep sewing to the minimum. We are going to match our two ends together here. And just for like consistency's sake, I usually like to have my working loop on this end on kind of like the front end for me. Just so I'm doing it the same way every single time. I'm going to close this up a little bit. And you are going to single crochet these together. And what we're going to do for that is we're going to stick our hook through the first loop, just like you'd do doing a single crochet, but then you're also going to stick it through the exact same spot at the other side. You're going to yarn over, you're going to pull up a loop, you're going to yarn over and pull through just like a regular single crochet. And you can see these were my initial chains, and this is these are my last worked stitches, and there should be one that matches all the way along. As long as you kept up with your stitches and you kept it so you're working 50 every single time, you will have twin stitches on either side. So you are just going to continue to match those up. Stick your hook through both sets. You can just stick it straight through if you have them matched up. Pull up, yarn over, pull through two. And this will be our way of closing the side of the hat up. Also, I would want to make sure you noted how you're going to start your sewing up, your single crocheting closed at the ribbed side so that your tail where you finish is at the top, because this is where we're going to actually sew the top of the hat up. So make sure your last row ends on this side. So if you get to the end here and your stitches don't match up perfectly, that's okay. Just kind of fudge the end ones here. This part is going to be sewn up anyways, so no one is really going to notice like if you're off by a stitch or two and you've kind of crowded a couple of them together. So now you're going to cut yourself a nice long tail. And this is the inside of my completed hat. And you can see we're just going to close this up here, kind of like a drawstring bag. So you are going to thread that nice long tail on a needle. And here you're going to take your needle and just work it in and out of this top line of stitches. And this is literally going to draw the top part closed like a drawstring bag. So just continue this all the way around your piece, making sure that you kind of pull it closed as you go so that you're not trying to pull too hard at the end. Now, if we were working with a lighter weight of yarn, this would not be the case as much, but as you can see, I've kind of closed it up as much as I can, and there's still about a quarter's worth of hole in there. So what we're going to do is just put in a couple of stitches just to hold the whole thing closed. And you're literally just going to take, and this does not have to be neat, no one's going to notice it, and however you want to do it, around or through the sides, you're just going to put in a couple of stitches to close this top part. So I just worked my needle in and out through these various stitches and just kept pulling it more and more closed. And now we are going to weave our end in just like I showed you in our weaving in our end video. And then you're going to flip it inside out and hand it off to someone extra cute to model for you. And I will see you guys for our next lesson, which will be a very basic granny square pattern. Thanks, Marshall.